Hello, everyone, Carmel Women's Club members and public. We're coming to you in a different format these days because of COVID-19. I think you're going to enjoy it. So many of you wanted our programs that we've worked out a way to bring them to you on YouTube and some other ways too. This is the first of a series. You'll read about them in the Pine Cone every week. We'll announce them as they're coming. And congratulations for being here today, because you're in on this historic first YouTube program of the Carmel Women's Club. Before I introduce our speaker, at the end of the program, you'll have more information on how to get this wonderful book. And now, my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Joan Smith McHenry.
Greetings. I'm Joan Smith, and I would like to share some information today about memory. You know, we've been talking a lot about how all of the different things that are impacting on us right now are causing us a lot of stress, and it seems to be impacting on our memory for many of us. My background is in educational and counseling psychology and speech pathology, and so this is a very special area of interest for me. I hope that you will enjoy this and use some of the exercises we're going to do as we go along to improve your memory. First of all, memory is kind of an interesting subject, because what it really is there's at least two different kinds of memory. One is called explicit, and there's two types within that. One is semantic memory, and that's the kind of memory that you have where you remember something from school in terms of content, knowledge, information that you've gained from your work or from your reading or from other experiences. But there's also a second type of explicit memory, and that's called episodic. And this is the one in which you remember things that have happened to you. You attended a wedding, you remember your 5th birthday party, all the different things that we remember about our lives and the experiences that we have. The other type of memory is called implicit, and that's more of a procedural memory. So if you get in the car and you turn on the ignition and you put it into gear and you back out, and you really didn't have to think about those specific steps, you had them in order and it was just automatic for you, that's procedural memory. That's what dancers rely on when they are trying to and they are performing. And that's what actors kick into when they are performing. They add both the language component but the procedural, because it prompts them about what comes next. Now, when we start to think about memory and how it affects us and the impact, and especially right now, while we all have so many things going on in our lives, we're worried about the virus, we're worried about the fires here, we're worried about not seeing the people that we enjoy, not being part of the family that we always enjoy seeing all the time, and maybe even experiencing some loneliness. All of these are different kinds of stresses that we put on ourselves. The key to that is it's not just the experience, but it's how we interpret that experience or how we think about it that creates the stress piece. So if we sit quietly and think, oh my gosh, the fire's coming, oh my gosh, this is gonna lose my home, I'm gonna do this, blah, blah, blah. All these kinds of horrible scenes that we're imagining could happen, we stress ourselves tremendously. So if we can learn to control somewhat our own thinking and the messages we send ourselves, we can reduce a great deal of the stress that we're experiencing and feel a lot better. Let's look at a couple of other things that cause memory issues, because these don't go away. The first one that seems not to be going away now is aging. And as we age, all of our cells in our brains do change. We experience some very interesting things that I would call symptoms of memory issues. One is many people experience word retrieval problems. We're thinking, we want to tell somebody something, and we remember that, oh, we saw, and we can't think of the person's name. And that's a huge one. Or we can't remember exactly the word of maybe a city that we just visited recently, and we're like, oh my gosh, what's going wrong with me? One of the fun things about that is that we start using filler words like, well, I saw, what's his name the other day? And people look at us like, huh? Or, I was going to get one of those, those whatchamacallits. Or my favorite one is thingy. And so all of those are ones that we tend to put into place when we can't think of the word. Now, the interesting thing that you may already have noticed about that is it's usually nouns. We don't have trouble thinking of the verb. We don't have trouble thinking of the preposition. It's the noun that eludes us. And so that's the first level in terms of memory issues that we go, oh my goodness, something's going wrong here. Okay? When we start to experience that, something very interesting happens to us. And that is that our inner language, that language in your head that goes, blah, 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 I think I should be doing this, or why is that person doing this? That one that talks to us all the time. It starts saying, oh my gosh, you're never going to think of that. They're going to look at you. Oh, this is so embarrassing. And your whole inner language takes over what should have been remembering the word and the access to that word. A couple of other things that impact on us as we experience memory issues can be anesthetics. So if you've had a surgery, even a very, very short-term one, I had a cyst, I think it was removed from my thumb. And it was like I was probably under anesthetic for maybe 20, 30 minutes. It was very quick. No symptoms. Next day, I'm sitting at my desk and someone had called and I have to return their call. So I dial the phone number and I call them and I say, hi, this is Dr. Smith calling back, and I just wanted to let you know that I did get your message, and you can call me at, I couldn't remember my telephone number. It was nowhere. Now, I have 5 telephone numbers that all have only 1 digit difference, so this is especially embarrassing. And I'm kind of blubbering on the phone. Excuse me, just a minute. And I can't find it anywhere. It's not written on the phone. I can't find a business card. So I thought, excuse me, I'm going to need to call you back because something has come up here. I'll call you right back. And I hung up the phone and I thought, oh my gosh, what happened? And then I realized, the anesthetic the other day probably has kind of given me a little cloudiness up there, and it's probably going to go away. And sure enough, it did. It was gone by the next day, and I certainly found my phone number. Another issue that often impacts us with memory problems is hormone. Certainly, if you're having a major warming trend or a hot flash, you may have a thought and it may just go out of your head because all you're thinking of is, oh my gosh, how am I surviving this, okay? So hormones can be an issue, and that's something that we want to look into if that is what's causing our issues. Another one that many people don't realize are medications. The antidepressants and the anti-anxiety medications and the statins all have side effects that for some people create memory or even more serious language problems. I've worked with a number of people who've taken the statins who have literally lost their memory totally, experienced an aphasic type reaction. I think there was one of the very famous astronauts who experienced that. And it can also affect muscle control. So be aware that if something's impacting on you and you're not certain why this is happening and you don't think it's the stress of the current issues that are going on today, look into some of those other causes, because They're easily correctable, and we don't have to have the memory and stress that we're experiencing. Now, when we're having memory issues, what's it look like? Well, for most of us, as we said, it's a word retrieval problem. But one of the things that causes that is the impact on our speed of processing. If we're experiencing stress, if we're experiencing aging issues, our processing speed in our brain actually slows down. And when that happens, we don't slow down in our wanting to speak or to access information, but our brain is kind of lagging behind us, and it's not always providing us with the information that we want because of the processing speed issue. You'll know that when you try to remember, what was it I wanted to say in this, and then all of a sudden it comes right to you. That's just because, oh yeah, it kicked in, it came up. The speed caught up with me. I have this habit of walking into the pantry, and I'm convinced that my feet are faster than my brain because I can get there before I remember what it is I wanted. Sometimes my feet have to carry me back into the kitchen to look at what I was looking at and what I wanted before I do that. But most of the time, it'll occur to me once I'm there, if I take a nice breath and go, oh yes, I needed the sugar. Okay. Some of the other pieces that we experience and that impact our memory is our own responses to those moments when we can't think of something. This is something that we really need to think about for ourselves because the first thing we get is anxiety. Oh, I can't think of it. What am I trying to say? Oh, where did it go? And when we get stuck in there, we have a great deal of frustration, and it begins to impact how we present ourselves. We often will want to rehearse ahead of time before we try open our mouths or something of that nature. And that's something that is more reactive than actually something that's happening to us. So if we'll look at some ways of kind of relaxing with that and not having that happen for us as we go on today. Now, some of this we do to ourselves. One is we don't get enough sleep. And sleep is absolutely important for us, especially as we mature. In between 7 to 9 hours of sleep is just wonderful. The other piece to that is we need to keep regular hours of sleep. So we can't go to bed at one night and at 10 the next night and expect our bodies to become comfortable with that kind of scheduling. We need to keep our lives on a schedule, especially regarding sleep. Another piece is stay off the cell phone at night and the computer, because both of those, if we use them 15 minutes to 30 minutes before we try to go to sleep, it takes us longer to actually get to sleep. And that's important for us. Another one that, for years people did was to have a snack before bedtime. And our bodies really need for the time that we're ready to go to sleep until the next morning to give us that fast, I think is the best word for it, of about 12 hours every night in which we really aren't consuming food. If our bodies are eating food when we're just before we go to sleep, then they're active, they're creating heat, they're creating energy, and that's probably not our best time to be going to sleep. So try to keep any late night snacks waiting for you for the next day. One of the things that happens for all of us is we're not getting enough exercise. And this is huge with the stresses we're experiencing right now. And it's going to affect our memory because exercise is what stimulates our blood and gets the energy going in our brains. And that is important for all of us. You don't know yet, but you will after you listen to me today, because one of my favorite helpers on this whole thing is water. Water is so important for our brains. Water is what hydrates our brains, because when we take in water, goes into our bloodstream, it hydrates the blood, which takes it then up to our brains. And water is what connects one cell to another in sending messages. So it's very, very important for us to be drinking water. Now, my favorite thing to share is have a glass of water as soon as you get up in the morning. It's going to increase your speed of getting going for the morning, and it's going to make you far more effective in starting your day and getting ready for it. I like also to have maybe 2 glasses during the morning hours and another 2 glasses in the early to mid-afternoon. You don't have to have it later in the day. You probably have water with your meals, but if you take a lot of water late in the night, it doesn't exactly help your sleep pattern because you'll be getting up, and that's not part of what we want to suggest. I had a very dear friend who was having serious memory problems. In fact, at one point we were talking and he was standing on the staircase and just stepped right off it and tumbled down it, and I was horrified, and oh my goodness, this is not good. He says, yeah, I'm having all these problems. I can't think. I'm not thinking ahead to do things. And he was doing odd things that he'd never done before. And I thought, oh, this is not good. Turns out he was not drinking any water. And he fortunately saw a physician who said, are you drinking water? And he said, well, no. And as soon as they put him on a regular water regime, his memory improved, his choices of, how to walk down a staircase certainly improved, and his health changed radically. So I can't tell you enough how important that is for us. Now, I'd like to share a couple of other things about food, and one of those is some of the things that are not helpful to us and helping our memory are heavy consumptions of sugar. Certainly with what's been going on, everybody feels they need to treat themselves. So we're eating a lot more sugar and white flour and fats than we should. Could be some of our memory problems are coming from that. Let's think instead about increasing our omega-3s and 9s, lowering our omega-6s, those are your vegetable oils that are not particularly healthy for us, and think about some good foods. Blueberries, any of your berry products, your raspberries, any of those are good. The darker the color of a fruit, the healthier. Dark chocolate, 70%, my personal favorite. And nuts or seeds, whole grains, avocados, and I would be remiss in not saying olive oil. Let's look at one other kind of thing. Because I think it's really important for us to understand there's hope out there in our improving our memories. One of the things that's going on right now a great deal in all of the psychological literature and medical literature is finally a recognition of neuroplasticity. And what that is that the recognition that our brains can create new connections between the cells in our brains and make us more effective. That's really important because that tells us that if we're having memory problems and we do some activities or exercises to help, that's going to make a difference for us. So let's look at some of those exercises. We're fortunate today that Flo has joined us to help show how these exercises work. And she's going to probably show you how some people can make mistakes on it. So I've given her that option, and so don't be surprised.
She'll be good at that.
We've got it covered, huh? One of the first exercises that's kind of fun to do, and it's a really easy one, and one that I think people enjoy doing because they can do it at any time, all right, is I encourage you to take your hand and put it on a piece of paper, and then you would draw around it, just like this. Okay, so it would look like that, all right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that we have blue on our thumb, red on the index finger, green on the middle finger, yellow on the fourth one, and purple over here, okay? So if we were to say, show me the purple finger, tap it, good. Show me the blue, thumb, okay, all right. And what you do with this is you can be sitting in an airplane, you know, waiting at the car wash, whatever it is you're doing, and you can sit there and go, green, blue, red, yellow, purple. Mm-hmm. You don't have to say it out loud. People might start watching you. But in your head, you can be just thinking, that's the purple. Mm-hmm. Green, red, blue. And the fun thing about this is what you're doing is you're integrating the language, the motor response, but you're also causing your brain to do something novel. And novel is good because your brain wants to do things that are interesting, and so it'll work for you that way. So here's an exercise we can do with that, though. I know that you know what all those are already, so we'll just put that away, okay? This is one of the exercises I do with it, and you can see it right here. And it's one of the exercises in our target therapy manual for cognition development. But this is a kind of exercise we can do, and we can use actually cards if we'd rather. But if we were looking at this and it said red, green, we'd know that looked like red, green, right? And if we knew purple, yellow, it would look like purple, yellow. Mm-hmm. What do you think this one would look like?
Thumb?
Blue?
Blue.
Uh-huh, then?
That would be index finger.
Let's check.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Let's do it again. Blue.
Blue.
Green. Good. And your pinky purple.
Purple.
Very good. So what you would do is you just practice with something like that. So in this case, it would be like, okay, there's blue, green, purple. This gets more complicated, okay? So we'll do this one together, okay? So the yellow is going to be that, yeah, yellow. Then blue is that thumb, green is our middle finger, and red is that index finger. Yeah, so we can actually just do that. It's almost like playing the piano. And if you get really, really good, you can do a pattern like this. One thing about doing this is, at first, do it slowly. Let yourself think about it, register it. All of these kinds of activities that we're going to do are ones that distract our brains so that we're not focusing on anything stressful, and we're activating both our body in terms of movement, but also our thinking skills. So this is a really nice one. If you want to play with it and you don't have a helper to play with you, you can always take and get some colored nice construction paper, we all used to have that, and put out like 2 of those, and you just randomly sort them, and this pattern then would look like 3. Okay, so that's a fun one to do. You can do it anywhere, no one will even know you're doing it, and it's going to make your brain work. All right. You know, Flo, we all want to increase our neuroplasticity. That's the connections in our brains, and make a whole bunch more connections. So neuroplasticity is something we're aiming for. One fun way of doing that is to create a memory palace.
Sounds good.
I know. The interesting thing is, the memory palace comes from work that was done in the 1500s, okay? And it was in particular by a gentleman by the name, actually a gentleman, he was a Jesuit priest, and his name was Matteo Ricci. And this is a rather interesting book, although I wouldn't recommend trying to read it because it does follow his entire life and every exercise he ever did in working with the populations he did. So it's not exactly a fun read. But the key thing about the Memory Palace was why he used it and what he was doing with it, okay? What he was doing was he was attempting to teach the Chinese people that when he traveled to China from Italy, to embrace Christianity. Okay? And so but he didn't have materials that were written in Chinese because they were a little bit different and all. And so he developed this technique of having them image events and I guess feelings, all the different kinds of things that you would want someone to communicate by anchoring it to places in your home. Okay? And so he called that a memory palace. So it really isn't, the memory palace is, yes, it's in your head, but it's also taking your own space and changing it. So the first thing that he would do is he would say, all right, you're going to walk into the front door of your house, okay? And surprise of all surprises, there's a goose in the front, right inside your entry. The goose is doing something different, looks different. So what you need to do is to either dress that goose up or have him doing, maybe he's ice skating on your front, entry or whatever. Think about something that would make that goose so interesting that you remember that it was there.
Something unforgettable.
Yes. What could you think of?
The goose eating an ice cream cone?
The goose is eating the ice cream cone. Very good. All right. So I see him too. You know where it is in your house, okay? You take a few steps in and your cell phone is there. Where did you put the cell phone? Where is it?
On the hall table.
All right. On the hall table. Now make that cell phone do something or look like something that you'll remember that it's there.
It looks like a pink present.
Ooh. Oh, so it's special. Now you already have two things that you've got in your memory palace. The first one was the
ice cream cone.
With the
goose.
Yes, that goose eating ice cream cone. None of us will forget this one. And then your next piece on your table was a
cell phone.
Very good, very good. You walk in a little further and there is a gigantic paperclip. I mean, it may be this big. Where is it?
What is it?
Where did you put it?
The gigantic paperclip
Yeah.
is in my gigantic file of legal papers.
Okay, and where is that file located in your house? Where have you gone?
In my office.
In your office. So you've gone into your office now, and there's this gigantic paperclip. So now we have three things that you already remember.
The goose eating the ice cream cone, the pink cell phone, and the gigantic paperclip.
Excellent, excellent. Now, for those of you who are watching, and I'm not going to flow deeper into this because of our time limits today, but you'll want to make a list of the goose, a cell phone, the gigantic paperclip, a purse, a pencil, a flower pot, a monkey, a picture frame, and a drum. Walk those through your house, anchor them in different places in your house, and then sit quietly and image them happening. Flo would sit there, and she's going to sit there, and she can see that goose eating that ice cream cone and hoping it isn't dripping all over her floor. She's going to see her table with this fancy cell phone all in pink decorations, and she knows exactly where to find the paperclip. The interesting thing about that is, if you initially anchor all of these items, you've already created a whole bunch of new memories in your brain, right? Yeah. And when you go home today and you walk in, you're going to go like, oh my God, the goose. I see the goose. And you're going to look up and you're going to see the table, and you'll remember that too. So the memory palace, this is what we do with the memory palace. Now let's take it a little bit further, and there's one other exercise you can do with this, and I'll just explain it to you, but it's one that is very handy for us, okay? because you know how you go into the grocery store and you go, I just need to get 3 things, and I want to get this, and oh, what was the other one? I think I remember what it was, but well, I'll get the other 2 first, and maybe it'll come to me, okay? Before you go grocery shopping, even maybe the night before, you can play with shopping in the store. So what you do is you say, all right, I have to get lettuce, chicken, Kleenex, and bread. And you imagine, where is the lettuce? Because you're very familiar with your store. You probably know where to go for the lettuce. So you could walk in the front door and head directly to the lettuce. Where is the Kleenex? Okay, I go to that store. Now, where is the bread? And so you figure out your path. And you may decide to reorder the order in which, your items are there because it's more convenient. So you already have preset yourself. I'm going to walk in there, I'm going to get the lettuce, I'm going for the yogurt, I'm going to get the bread, and I'm going to pick up the Kleenex, and I am going to have to go get in line because now we stay 6 feet apart in our line, and before I can check out. That's a very good exercise to do, and it's a practical one. You can do it at home when you're making out your grocery list, and it's going to improve your brain function. You're going to be efficient, and your memory is going to be there because you've already preset how it works. Okay. If we're going to develop our neuroplasticity, those new connections in our brains, there's probably 6 things that are really quick to do and important to remember. The first one is change your sleep habits, get good rest. Second one is drink your water, especially start with it first thing in the morning. Third one is always eat breakfast. And if you can't stand to eat in the morning, at least get yourself a healthy protein shake that isn't real high in sugar, that you make yourself. Fourth, exercise. Walk out the front door and keep walking for 10 minutes. You'll get 20 minutes of exercise because you got to walk 10 minutes back. And that's a really good one for us all. Fifth, breathe. Take a really deep breath and let it out. And you'll feel your whole body go, that feels good. And the thing about taking a deep breath is, since you've just expelled all that air, it makes you breathe deeper for the next couple of minutes also. So that's very healthy. And finally, smile. When you smile, you activate the zygomatic muscle right here, which has a really unique impact on us. It impacts on and creates neuropeptides in our brains. And neuropeptides are little tiny molecules that allow the neurons to communicate. It creates serotonin, which makes you feel pretty good about yourself, dopamine, which makes you feel totally organized, and finally, epinephrine, which is a pain reliever. It just doesn't get any better than smiling.